Might be legal, but it is weird. As anybody who watches this channel on a regular basis, which I hope is all of you, and if not, subscribe, come back every day. Not every day, we don't make videos every day, but come back often and watch the video all the way through so I get that sweet watch time and therefore more money. But if a video does well, then you're more than likely to see at least one sequel. At least one. If Tilping really goes off, I'll be like, part 17! Because it's a good money spinner, isn't it? As anything that involves any kind of unusual laws from around the world seems to be popular, I pitched Simon, that's Dave, who wrote today's script, on the idea of things people think are illegal but are actually not. As you can see, the idea was approved. So can you. Look, here we are. And without any further ado, here are the results. Pubs do not have to open just because they can. Wait, did anyone think that?
No.
You might think that this would be obvious. I would say so. But given the fact that I was regularly challenged on this during my time as both a barman and a publican, I thought it would be a good opportunity to have the final word, so to speak. Contrary to popular belief, just because a pub has a license to remain open until a certain time, they are under no legal obligation to do so. It'd be very weird if they were, because it'd be like, yeah, well, we've got a 24-hour license, so we have to be open 24 hours a day. Of course not. Because they'd be like 3 o'clock in the morning, no one's there, and they'd be like, okay, gotta keep this place staffed. That would be insane.
The madness stops here.
Hello, everybody. Have you ever found yourself in the age-old dilemma? Boxers too loose, briefs too tight? Well, worry no more, because today's sponsor, Sheath, have got your back. Or should I say not your back, but your nether regions. I'm currently wearing Sheath right now. I've also got a nice clean pair of Sheath right here, and it's incredible. No more discomfort, no more awkward adjustments, just pure comfort. Whether it's hot outside, cold outside, whether you're in the gym, whether you're just sitting at a desk. No one likes the underwear that's like moving around and getting all uncomfortable, like riding up, or, you know, it's not right. None of that with Sheath, which keeps everything exactly where it's supposed to be. They have this dual pouch system, so your different man bits can go in different sections, which keeps everything, like, especially in the summer, this is really good. Way less sweaty. Very nice. But I was skeptical at first. Who wouldn't be? Why? You put your different pieces in different places? Bit weird. Try Sheath, get one bare, you'll see what it's about, and then your entire underwear drawer will now be filled with Sheath, like in no time at all. It's just how it works. That's mine. It's just only Sheath now. Plus, if you don't feel like using the dual pouch system that day, no problem. You don't have to. They're still extremely comfortable. Plus, they have base layers for the winter. They've even got a brand new women's line, which is cool, made out of bamboo. Head over to sheathunderwear.com and treat yourself. Use the promo code BLAZE for an exclusive 20% off. That's sheathunderwear.com. Promo code BLAZE. Your nether regions will thank you. And now back to today's video. For those of you who do not know, opening a pub is not quite as simple as getting the keys, filling the cellar, and opening the doors. Like, it depends if you want to run a speakeasy or a pub. Local councils provide all sorts of fun and interesting hoops for any would-be publican to jump through. One of these is the procurement of a premises license, which allows you to sell alcohol for consumption on the premises. Although 24-hour licenses are available, they are by no means standard issue and require jumping through an entirely different set of hoops, ones that happen to be on fire. Once the local council has granted you this license, they add various restrictions to it. These include, among other things, opening hours, whether or not you're required to have door staff, whether or not you're allowed to use real glasses, etc. Oh, don't you love regulation? The UK is very regulated. Like, there's a lot of regulations around this sort of stuff. And I'm just like, is this really necessary? How did we get here? Why are there so many rules? Once all this is done, you're presented with your shiny new license, complete with your maximum opening hours, which you must, by law, display prominently somewhere inside the venue. Now, it's at this point where the next fun begins. For example, if you want to close the pub at 9:30 on a Wednesday evening because John is the only customer in the place and John only buys half a pint of Carlsberg every hour and a half, so it's actually costing you about £20 an hour to stay open, you're quite within your rights to tell John that he doesn't have to go home, but he can't stay here. What's that song? You don't have to go home, but you can't. Closing time, semisonic, boom. Be warned though, if you choose to do this, John will start telling you that you're legally obligated to stay open until your licensed hour is finished. Not only is John incredibly tedious, but he's also wrong and old. 35 years ago, he might have had a case, but this particular piece of obscure licensing terminology to which he is referring was quietly removed during the Licensing Act of 1988. Furthermore, as I used to tell everyone who quoted this obscure piece of out-of-date legislation, anybody working behind a bar can refuse you service for no reason at all should they wish to do so, and being deliberately obnoxious is a good way to have that rule invoked upon you on your next visit.
Why? 'Cause fuck them, that's why.
Yeah, like refusing service. It's like if someone, can you imagine a sponsor comes to me and it's like,
Hi Simon, we're a crypto casino based out of Belize. We'd like to sponsor you and definitely not rip off your fans.
and I'll be like,
Well, I don't really want you to sponsor.
and they're like,
Well, you have to. That's what your business does, Simon.
and it's like, no, I can refuse that because it's how things fucking work.
Yeah, logic, bitch.
So, there you go. I shall call time on this rant. Something else you're not legally obligated to do in a pub. Remember, people, John is a bellend. Don't be like John. It's not illegal to sell sex in the United Kingdom. I feel like I know this one. It's illegal to, like, pimp or, like, have a brothel, but, like, to individually sell it is okay. I think that's correct. Many people, and I must include myself in this list until recently, believed that selling sexual services in the UK is against the law. However, that's not the case. According to the Centre to End All Sexual Exploitation, prostitution in the UK is not illegal. However, in an attempt to mitigate the harm and risks associated with it, the UK government has criminalised more than 30 associated activities, including soliciting sex on the street, curb crawling. What is curb crawling? Is that like a dude like driving past being like, hello there, hello? Advertising using cards in telephone boxes, causing inciting prostitution or controlling it for personal gain, i.e. pimping, brothel keeping, and the buying of sex from trafficked individuals. Or to put it another way, the government is doing all that it can to make it as difficult as possible. Well, if you feel that way about it, government, why not just ban it? It's like, I imagine that legislation would be pretty straightforward. Regardless of your individual feelings on the matter, there are two indisputable facts. Firstly, although prostitution I think we have to use the word sex work, even though this organization against prostitution called it prostitutions themselves. But I'm going to use sex work because I called it prostitution once and people got upset. So sex work is the correct thing to use, and I just want to make people happy. And I'm sure I'm making some people unhappy by using.
Simon, you're so woke not using the word prostitute. I use the word hooker. In fact, I just call them whores.
I need to chill out.
Daddy, chill.
It has been around for an incredibly long time, or will continue to be around no matter what laws are put into place to prevent it. Secondly, in countries where sex work has been properly legalized and systems put in place to protect workers, trafficking and other forms of exploitation have decreased dramatically. Yeah, I feel like most countries in Europe, it's legal. Like it's legal here in Czech. I know it's legal in Germany, the Netherlands. Like most countries are like, yeah, we just regulate it and tax it. Why the fuck not? I don't know how I personally stand on the matter. Like, it's pretty complicated. Because obviously, if someone wants to do that, I'm kind of like, go ahead. But also, as soon as you start getting into, like, the seedy underbelly of it, with, like, trafficking and stuff, it becomes mega wrong mega quickly. As it currently stands in the UK, you're perfectly within your rights to buy or sell sex or other sexual services, just as long as you don't publicly advertise. Both parties are consenting, and none of the services you provide are illegal in their own right, such as sex with a minor. Obviously, it's perfectly legal to drive in flip-flops. It is? Wait, what about driving barefoot? Because I'd much rather drive barefoot than in flip-flops, but I think driving barefoot is technically not allowed. For this one, I conducted a small survey of my own. I picked the first 10 people who could drive from my address book and sent them a message asking whether or not it was legal to drive while wearing flip-flops. My address book on my phone is so old, and it's like, does anyone really use that anymore? Because the people I call are all just people in WhatsApp or like iMessage, and I'll just find the last message they sent to me and then call them through there. I don't go in my contacts. But I did out of curiosity the other day, and I was like, I have no idea who most of these people are. I have no idea. And it'd be random shit like, John, desk. And it's like, so I guess at some point I bought a desk off someone called John and I had to phone him to pick up the desk. But it was so long ago, I literally have no idea who John is. 8 out of these 10 people replied saying that of course it's not, why would I ask such a ridiculous question? Extending my research slightly, I consulted the internet and responses were similar. So why do people, including many who presumably study the highway code reasonably extensively to pass their driving test, believe this untruth? Well, it's probably because, like many things in law, it's open to interpretation. Rule 97 of the highway code states states that the footwear and clothing that you choose to wear while driving must not prevent you from using the controls in a correct manner. Flip-flops, an exceptionally dangerous choice of footwear in almost any setting that is not a beach, could certainly do this. However, they are not explicitly prohibited under UK driving law. As an interesting side note, a friend of mine argued this very point with a police officer who decided to pull us over while we were travelling back from a Green Day gig. Presumably having seen 5-6 feet plus hippie-looking 19-year-old guys crammed into a Ford Fiesta, the officer of the law was convinced that at least one of us would be carrying some sort of prohibited substance, or at the very least, driving without insurance. Wait, I feel that driving without insurance is worse than just having a little bit of weed on you, no?
No.
After this disgrace to the uniform had delayed us by about 30 minutes and discovered nothing for which he could arrest any of us, he then took issue with the driver's footwear, stating that it was absolutely illegal to drive in flip-flops. Given that my friend's dad was a driving instructor and we all had endured many lectures on driving law over the years, he happily argued this point until the officer became very cross indeed. We were eventually released to go about our lawful business.
Let's go.
Continuing with driving law for just a moment, it's also not illegal to have your interior light switched on while driving. I didn't think it was. It's just not very comfortable, to drive with the interior lights on.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
The highway code only states that, when on, the light must not shine out of the back window or obstruct the view of anyone who may be behind you. That being said, if history has taught us anything, it is that arguing with police officers purely on the grounds they happen to be completely innocent can have fatal ramifications, especially if and be a person of colour, so it might just be safer to turn off the light and keep a pair of trainers under your seat. It's perfectly legal to photograph children in public. Might be legal, but it is weird. I don't know, I've got kids. And a couple of times, people have come up to me, there was one, it was just we were at some outdoor sort of beer garden area and there was a band playing and my daughter's just there's no one dancing. And she's I don't know, probably 3 years old at the time. And she's just dancing just by herself. And some old woman, maybe, I don't know, late 60s comes up to us and it's I find this really sweet. Do you mind if I take a picture? And I'm like, that's very nice of you to ask. Of course you may. But if someone was just randomly taking pictures of my kids, I'd be like, what's up? And you know what? Even if I'm with my kids and they're playing with another kid and I want to take a photo of my kid because they're playing with another kid, I'll still say to the parent, do you mind if I take a photo? Because it's fucking polite. Imagine the following scenario. You're enjoying a picnic in the park with your young children. So far, you're having a fantastic time. You were fortunate enough to pick one of the 7 annual rain-free days in the UK. Neither of your children has decided that after declaring their love for ham and cheese sandwiches that morning, they now hate them for their entire lives. Yes. Daughter, what would you like for dinner?
I'd like an omelette.
Okay, we can have omelettes. And so we make omelettes.
Dad, I don't like omelettes.
What the fuck? Just made a butter. Eat the omelettes. And I don't make anything else. So it's you can have the omelette or you can just eat the vegetables on the side. It's up to you. I'm not making you another dinner. Life is, in short, splendid. But what's this? Out of the corner of your eye, you spot somebody sitting on a public bench, quite obviously taking photographs of you and your children. That, you indignantly declare, is illegal. I wouldn't say, I don't think it's illegal. I'd be can you please stop that? What are you doing?
I need you to be able to tell me what's wrong with this without me explaining it verbally.
Especially if they look weird. If it's just someone who's clearly a parent, with their kids in the park, I'd be okay, whatever. They're just photographing the day out of the park. But if that person looks like a stereotypical P word, I'll be sup, bro? What you doing?
I will send you to Jesus.
Furiously, you approach the stranger and demand that they immediately delete all of the photographs that include your children, and if they refuse, you'll immediately contact the police. Although your outrage at this exceptionally creepy behavior would be fully justified, as long as you are enjoying your picnic in a public place, there is very little you could do about it, according to pauldavidsmith.co.uk. I love how Dave just uses these random websites for references. Who's this? A website set up by a photographer of the same name to inform fellow enthusiasts about their rights. Photographers are able to take pictures in all public places, including photos of people, for journalistic, editorial, or art purposes, so long as they're not harassing members of the public to obtain the photographs. Furthermore, contrary to common belief, you do not need permission to take pictures of children in public places in the UK, so long as the images cannot be considered indecent and the child's parents cannot insist that you delete any images you have taken. I'm by no means a legal expert, but presumably the journalistic clause within this rule means that the photographer is also free to publish these images in any way that they wish. That's you're in a public place. Is it weird? Yes.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Is it illegal? No, it'd be weird if it was illegal. So far in this video, we've established that many people living in the UK are woefully ignorant of the laws that govern their behaviours. But what about across the pond? Are our US cousins just as ignorant? And the short answer, as you can probably imagine, is yes. But don't just take my word for it. Let's look at some examples. Police officers do not have to identify themselves if asked.
Surprise, mother.
If you've seen any movies ever, you're probably familiar with the following scenario. A drug dealer is sitting on a park bench when they are approached by a new customer who furtively asks them if they might be able to hook them up with some gear. After looking his potential customer up and down, the dealer will almost invariably ask the following question: "Are you a cop?" After the would-be purchaser replies in the negative, the drug dealer will take their word for it and usually offer to sell them whatever it is they want.
I am not a police officer.
Okay then, 175 for a team.
Right to jail, right away.
Growing up, I assumed this was a belief held only by people in movies or television shows, but it appears that an inordinate amount of Americans believe that a police officer is constitutionally bound to answer this question truthfully. If you think about it for even a second, the very idea is that this is absurd. Yeah, I didn't think this was true.
Great job.
Although US police officers are constantly lambasted for inappropriate behavior, they do occasionally take time away from allegedly murdering unarmed minorities and have been known to conduct successful undercover takedowns of criminal enterprises. It's not funny. I don't know why I laughed. It's just like so... it's just so dark. These endeavors would simply not be possible if all a crime boss had to do was ask their latest member if they worked for law enforcement.
You a snitch, Terry?
No, boss, not a snitch.
Okay, Terry, you're in the inner circle. Boom.
Imagine that the police spent hundreds of thousands of dollars organizing an undercover operation only for it to be thwarted because the undercover officer was legally obligated to confess their occupation when asked. Why so many people believe this doesn't appear to be clear. I could find no official documentation that would lead people to think it was true. If I may speak conspiratorially for a moment, I suspect that it is widely believed simply because it's extremely beneficial for members of law enforcement, and therefore correcting this misnomer would only have a negative effect on their productivity. It is not illegal for a business to refuse service on health and safety grounds. I don't know if you all noticed, but a few years ago, there was somewhat of a global upheaval caused by the COVID-19 virus. The what? Speaking personally, none of the measures put in place were that disruptive. I don't like large crowds. I had just got a fantastic job working from home, and I'm not a selfish prick. So when I did have to go outside, putting on a face mask was no issue. Unfortunately, many people did take issue with being asked to wear a face mask in public places, and the internet quickly began to fill up with people claiming that they have been refused service by certain businesses, and that refusal was illegal.
No one cared who I was till I put on the mask.
Businesses can refuse your custom. I don't understand why this is so controversial. I've told this story before, but I remember when I worked in a newsagent, some woman comes in and we'd had some cigarettes up and they were clearly at the wrong price. And she's like, "Oh, I'll have those cigarettes." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's the wrong price." And she's like, "Well, you have to sell them to me." And I'm like, "No, I don't." And she got a right tissy. Like, that's not the law at all. And that was that. Fascinating story, Simon. Thank you. Fascinating tangent, Simon. Let's carry on. In most cases, these claims were incorrect. While it is true that federal laws state businesses cannot discriminate against someone based on their national origin, race, sex, disability, citizenship status, or religious beliefs, they are perfectly within their rights to refuse service on the grounds of health and safety concerns. Yes, there's a big difference between that woman coming in and asking for the cigarettes at a price that is not right, than a woman coming in and asking to buy the cigarettes at a full price, and then, or a man coming in and wanting to buy the cigarettes at full price, and then a woman coming in and wanting to buy this, like, "No, I can't sell them to you, Betty. I don't sell cigarettes to women. Cigarettes are for men, Betty. Am I right, Peter?"
No.
Examples of these health and safety concerns include, but are not limited to, not wearing shoes, not wearing a shirt, or not wearing a face mask when asked to. My favorite online response to a customer who complained vociferously about being denied access to a well-known sandwich chain because they refused to put on a mask came from an employee of that same chain and went thusly: "In America, we all have rights. In this case, I suggest you exercise your consumer right to take your business elsewhere."
This is how you deal with the problem.
It's not universally illegal in America to drink alcohol under the age of 21. Ooh, it's not? I thought it was. Maybe it's right. Maybe, Is this the difference between buying and drinking? Because I think in the UK, you can drink whenever you like. You just can't buy alcohol. The last entry is actually relevant to both the UK and the US. In the UK, the legal age for purchasing alcohol and consuming it in a pub is 18. However, there is one exception that I'm aware of. Beer, wine, or stout can be purchased by somebody over the age of 18 for consumption by somebody over the age of 16 if the 16-year-old is eating a plated meal in a clearly designated restaurant area. Yes, I remember this weird law from when I was a kid.
When's your birthday?
22nd of February.
What year?
Every year.
While this is technically legal, I've travelled all over England and visited many, many pubs. Not one of those pubs has actually allowed this, as it is very much down to the discretion of the licence holder, or to use the correct term, the designated premises supervisor. Certain parts of the United States also allow this. For example, Wisconsin, Louisiana, and Texas all technically allow minors to consume alcohol in a restaurant as long as they are accompanied by a parent, guardian, or spouse of legal drinking age. Other examples include consuming alcohol for religious ceremonies, consuming alcohol for medical purposes. Apparently, there are some conditions which alcohol might be prescribed by your doctor. I want to know what those conditions are. And consuming alcohol for educational reasons, such as studying at culinary school. So, now you know. It's like I'm going to open a series of pubs in America called Simon's Culinary School. So what's going on there? We're getting drunk and making creme brulee. In a country where you can enlist in active armed forces duty from the age of 17, you can at least get your mum to buy you dinner and a beer when you get back. You can enlist in the military at 17 in America? It's kind of wild that there's such that huge gap between, like, driving, military, and drinking. Like, I wouldn't have been able to drink until I'd basically left university. Legally. It's kind of wild. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Dad, I don't like omelets.
What the fuck? Just made a eat the omelets.